John Caskey, this is Henry Poore, and I'm sorry that I can't be with you tonight, but I'm certainly glad that I can be a part of your party. Now tonight, a lot of the folks are going to hear what a benevolent and kind-hearted soul you are, how you're a champion of the downtrodden and a champion of the uninsured. But I'm going to tell a little story, and then we'll just let the people judge for themselves. Back in the 60s, John, if you remember, you and I liked to fish a lot together. And we went over to Lake Mead. We took our two boys, about 10 years old, and we fished for the bass and the big crappies. And one time we went over there and we took your old box-type Jeep, the old 1958 Jeep, and it had a trailer and a boat behind it. Your equipment all the way. And so we went to Lake Mead, and we got into a terrible storm down on off Temple Bar. But we came in on Sunday night, had to have the boys back to Flagstaff on for school on Monday morning, and we got in the old Jeep, and we started up the hill out of Temple Bar. Lo and behold, the old Jeep quit. Well, we cranked that thing and cranked it, and John said, I just put a new fuel pump on it. We disconnected the fuel lines, turned it over, and found out we didn't get any fuel out of that new fuel pump. What were we to do? We were 100 miles approximately from Kingman and a long way from Flagstaff. And so we got out, scratched our heads. The boys were sleepy and tired in the back, and we were weary from the day's fishing trip. And I wish it had been my idea, but it was John's. John walked around, and he said, Henry, on the primer bulb on our boat, if we could take that line loose, and we could run one end into a Jeep can, which, by the way, we had filled up on our way at Dolan Springs, if we put one end in the Jeep can and the other end through the firewall to the carburetor, and if you pumped it, well, maybe that motor would run. So we set about, we took off that hose and we ran it through the firewall. Lord knows there were enough holes in that old firewall to get a hose through. Hooked it into the carburetor. John got under the steering wheel, and I got under the squeeze pump. I pumped it a couple of times, and lo and behold, the old Jeep started. I said, wait a minute, John. And John pulled himself up to his 6'2", and he said, Henry, since it's my Jeep and my boat, I feel it is my responsibility to get these boys home safely. And therefore, I think that I will drive and you will pump. Well, what do? It was his equipment. What can you do? I started to pump, and I pumped, and the old Jeep ran, and I pumped, and I changed hands, and my hands would get tired, and I pumped, and we came to a service station in Kingman, and John rolled down the window and said to the attendant, fill it up, and he pointed to the Jeep cans. The fellow said, what's that? And I said, well, we're with Willis Motors, who made the Jeep at that time. And I said, we're testing a new hand-operated fuel pump. He said, it never going to sell. And he turned and walked back in, but he filled up our tanks. Well, we started home, and I pumped. And I said, John, let me drive a little bit. No, he said, I'll drive and you pump. We came to the Ash Fork Hill. Now, he tried to pass everything on the road. He got in the fast lane. Faster, faster, he would say, pump, pump, pump. And my hands had become talons like an eagle, and they wouldn't respond. So halfway up that hill, my hands quit, and John pulled off. And he said, do you realize we're in the median? We've got to get out of here. He said, limber up your arms, try a little massage on them, and maybe you can get them to work again. So I worked on my hands, and I'm a doctor too, as well as John. I knew that my hands were just about gone. But anyway, I got them to working, and I pumped all the way into Flagstaff. We pulled in front of my house, and I got out, and I said, if the Lord will forgive me, I'll never go fishing with this fella again. Well, I put the boy on in the house, and John said, how am I going to get home? I said, I would suggest you get home the same way we got here, by steering and pumping. So the last time I saw him that night, he was steering with his knees, changing gears with this hand and pumping with this one. Now, John traded that old Jeep the next day, and he got himself a new International Travelall, and we fished for years after that in that old Travelall. And to this day, John and I are still the best of friends. So when you're judging the character of a man, whether he is benevolent, kind to his fellow human being, then you remember my story and you be the judge for yourself.